Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the lab 3 authentication using the packet tracer. The objective of this lab to have hands-on experience on securing router administrative access using AAA server using packet tracer. In this lab you are going to practice the authentication. Authentication is a process that is used to identify the users. So the user has to be first identified before he can access any service from any system. So first we have to configure this topology in the packet tracer. This topology has a router and a PC and a server. The basic idea of this lab is the user from this PC would try to connect with this router using Telnet protocol. So the Telnet is a protocol that can be used to connect with the remote system. Okay, let's say you are in Sur, you are sitting in your laptop, in front of your laptop, you want to connect with some machine in a distant or remote location. Example, the system is in Muscat. So what protocol can be used to connect with the remote system? Telnet. And you have many other options. So now in this lab we are going to focus on Telnet. But when a user try to connect with the router, when a user try to access the router, the user has to be authenticated. For example, in the lab, when you come to the lab, you enter your username and password. This username and password is authenticated by a server. Okay, so similarly, when the user try to access this router, the user has to be authenticated, but the authentication is not done by the router, but it is done by another server that is called as radius server, AAA radius server. Okay, so when the user try to access the router would send the username and password credentials to the authentication server, AAA server. The AAA server would verify whether the username and password are correct. If they are correct, then the user authentication is successful and user can access the router. So understand, the router is not doing the authentication. For authentication, it is taking the help from the AAA radius server. Now let us create the topology. So put this topology in your mind and go to the packet tracer. We need a PC. Okay, so you need a PC. So we have a PC. Then let me put the PC here. I need a router. So click the network device, router. Okay, just go and find a router with port. So this one you can see. Okay, router with port router hyphen pt. So this one you select. Okay, so router hyphen pt. Then we need a server, so click the end device, then go to the server. Okay, server with port, server hyphen port. So put the port server here. So we have the PC, router and the server. Now make the connection. Okay, so we made the connection. See, now it is showing the interface name, this interface. Okay, this is FA0/0, this is FA0/0, this is FA1/0, then FA0. Okay, FA0. Okay, these are the interface names where we have to assign IP address. Suppose if the interface name is not coming, then go to options, preferences. This one, you see, if I uncheck, it is going away, the interface name. Always show port labels in logical workspace, so you should select. Clear? So now, students, we have to configure the IP address. Okay, let's check the topology here. This system has an IP of 10.0.0.1. So go to, just double click desktop IP configuration. Then okay, so give the IP here 10.0.0.1. You can check your lab manual. Okay, then subnet mask comes automatically 255.0.0.0. Then please understand, you have to configure the gateway IP address. So for this machine, the gateway is okay, this one. So actually this machine connects to the router through this interface. Okay, so this interface connect the machine into the router. So this interface IP address is the gateway. So you can check the topology in the lab manual. This interface IP is 10.0.0.2. So please understand, so that is the gateway 10.0.0.2. So again I repeat, this is the IP address, then subnet mask will come automatically 255.0.0.0, then gateway. So this system connect to the router through this interface. So for this interface, the IP address is this 10.0.0.2. So that IP address you have to go give as a default gateway. Now finished. So this IP we have finished. Okay, next one is this machine. Double click, go to desktop, check what is IP 20.0.0.1. okay, click 20.0.0.1 and then click the subnet mask, it will come automatically. For this machine, okay, the default gateway is this 20.0.0.2. This system connects with the router through this interface. So this interface IP is this 20.0.0.2. So that is the gateway. Okay, check the lab manual. So now we have configured the IP here and IP here also. Now let's go to the router. So router has two interfaces, FA0/0, FA1/0. So go, okay, select the router, go to config, then click this interface, FA0/0. Okay, now check your lab manual. Check your lab manual. Now this interface IP is this 10.0.0.2. Okay, you can ask teacher, here it is gig 0/1, but in our topology what we have created, it is FA0/0. Always understand whatever interface you are getting in your packet tracer, okay, that one, for that one you have to give the IP address. Clear? So here the IP is this 10.0.0.0.2. Subnet mask comes automatically. Then go up and check, select, okay, this check on box. Okay, this is finished. Now we have to configure the IP here for this interface. So go to the router again. The second interface here, okay, is FA1/0. So for the FA1/0, the IP is check 20.0.0.2. Okay, 20.0.0.2. Then check the on. Now you can see, okay, the systems are connected to each other. They are perfectly working. So let's go to this PC and command prompt. I want to check the connectivity. So I want to ping this machine. So ping 10.0.0.1. It's pinging, you see, it's working well. That means there is a connectivity between these systems. Then go here and go to command prompt and ping this machine. Ping 20.0.0.1. It's pinging. So now there is a connection between this PC and this router through this this server through this router. Let me copy the IP address here. So this IP is 10.0.0.1. okay, let me make it big. Okay, so now this is the IP. Now let's fix the IP for this machine. 20.0.0.1, and for this machine for here this interface, the IP is 20.0.0.2, and for this interface the IP is 10.0.0.2. So the IP address of all the machines we have done. Now we have to make some configurations in the AAA server. Click here, go to services. So we have selected this server. Okay, now we have to make this as a AAA server. So just click here, services, then click AAA server. Okay, now client name. So this router, okay, router 1, router 0, and the IP is this IP address. So actually this is the radius server. This is going to do the authentication, okay, on behalf of the router. So when the user, okay, try to log in into the router would take the help of the radius server to do the authentication. So to the radius server we have to tell, okay, who is your client for whom you are going to do the authentication. So you are going to do the authentication, the radius server is going to do the authentication for this router which has this IP address. Okay, then when this router communicate with the server, okay, there should be some sort of authentication. Okay, so to do this authentication we have to define a key here. Let's say the key is 123. Okay, so this is for the router to connect with the server. So that time the server has to authenticate the router. So for that we fix a secret password. Now what type of service? Okay, so it's radius authentication. So let me repeat once again, students. I have selected the server. You get the window. In that you go to service, then go to AAA, then basically what you do is you add the client name, so the name of this router, and then the IP address of this router, this, okay, 10.0.0.2, then this is the password when the router communicate with the server. So that time this is used for the authentication, and the type of service the router is going to take from this server is radius authentication. Now when you enter all these details, click add, so it would be added. So like this, if you want to add more number of routers, you can add more number of routers. So all the routers would be authenticated by the AAA server. Now next question is, now when the user connect to the router, he should give some username and password. That username and password would be verified by the AAA server. So now we have to tell the AAA server what username and password are valid username. Okay, valid. So I say some user, example Tom, password is 123. So this is a user, Tom is a user, password is 123. Okay. So now this is basic configurations which you have to do in the AAA server. Is it clear to you? Then make it on. Okay. So close it. So now the AAA server, the configuration is over. So we have created the topology, then we have configured the IP address, then we have did the configuration with the AAA server. Okay, so we have just go here, AAA, this one, so I just want to edit router 0. Okay, just I edited the name. Okay, now we have configured everything. So this part is over. Now we have to go to the router. So this is a router. In this router we should enable the telnet, then only the user from this PC can connect with the router. So go here, click the CLI. Okay, so when you go to the router, you are in the interface mode. So what I suggest you, come out first. Okay, exit, then exit. You should come to this level. Press return to get started. You should come to this level. Let me close. So I open the router. So you are in the initial stage of the router. So now what you do, just click here and press enter. Press enter. Now enable, understand? Okay, enable. Then you have to type config, config, config space t, config t. Okay, you are now in the configuration mode. You see, you are in the configuration mode. So you have to come to the configuration mode like this. Let me repeat. I exit, then exit. Okay, then I just click the router. Okay, then I click inside the window, then press enter, type enable. Okay, then config t. Okay, so we are in the configuration mode. So now next is you have to enable a secret to the router. So enable secret, to the router. So let's say Cisco. Okay, enable secret Cisco. Why? Because what happens is when you start the router, so initially you are telling that you have to give this Cisco as the password to enter the router. So we are fixing the password, otherwise we can simply come inside the router. That shouldn't happen. So if someone try to access the router, then there would be a prompt that would ask for the password, secret password. So the password is Cisco. Then we say line, line, line. Okay students, line VTY 0 space 4. So we are enabling the Telnet protocol in the router, because the user from the PC is going to log in into the Telnet protocol. So we have to enable the Telnet. So for that, the command is line space VTY 0 space 4. That means you are telling, please enable the Telnet and allow 5 connections, up to 5 connections. From 0 to 4 means 5 connections. Next is login authentication default. Okay students, let me increase the font size, otherwise it's very small. So now it's big. So first command is en, then config t, then enable secret Cisco, then line slash VTI 0 slash 4. Okay, so I am just following this commands. This we have finished. Next one is login authentication default. So login question mark. Okay, so if you have any doubt, you can put question mark. So it's asking, okay, you can type authentication, okay, question mark. It's asking the options. So you can say login authentication default. So you have to just type same like that, what's given. Okay, login authentication is default. Okay, login authentication is default. Okay, there is some mistake, just let me fix it. So it is just a warning message, we can ignore that warning message. So far what we have done in the router, okay, we have gone to the configuration mode, first enable, then config T. So in the configuration mode, we fix the password to the router, enable secret Cisco is the password. Then we configured the Telnet using this command, line space VTY space 0 space 4. Then we executed this command, login authentication default. Okay, so you get this warning message, you can ignore the warning message. Then okay, exit, understand? So we finished the step 3. Now let's go to the step 4. Okay, in the step 4 already we are in the config mode, understand? So in the config mode, you type AAA new -model. So you type this in the config mode. So earlier we were in the line mode, so you have to come out barra using exit command. Clear? So in the config mode, you type AAA space new model. this. So this is enabling the AAA on router 0. Okay. Now step 5, set authentication for login using AAA server through radius protocol. So set authentication for login using AAA server through radius protocol in the router 0 and tell the router what is the IP address for radius server and key password to connect to. So now actually what we are going to do, we are going to tell the router, if any user wants to authenticate, please communicate with the radius server. Okay, so we are going to tell the router, please communicate with the radius server in this IP address. And also you remember we have configured a password for the router to connect with the radius server. So that password is here. The password is here, 123. Understand? So that password also we have to give. So go to the router, okay, then do this settings. AAA authentication login, authentication login, default group radius local. So this you have to type in this machine, AAA authentication login default group radius. That is, we are telling the authentication would be done by the AAA server using the radius protocol. Then we have to tell which machine is the radius server machine. So go back here, this topology, this is the radius server machine. Okay, so we have to tell which machine the radius server is running. So radius server, okay, so I am sorry, radius hyphen server, okay, host, it is in 10.0.0.1 and the key to connect is this 123. Okay, so this is the key. So click here, AAA server, you can see the key is 123. So now we have finished this step. Now from the user system we are going to connect with the Telnet to the router through the Telnet protocol. So go here to the user system. So I just selected the, click the user PC, go to command prompt, here type Telnet. Okay, so Telnet, okay, 20.0. Just a minute. So students, now I want to connect with this router. Okay, so using the Telnet protocol. So using the Telnet protocol. Okay, so already all this. Okay, so when I try to connect, the router should ask me the username and password. So if I give the username and password, then the username and password has to be verified and authenticated by the AAA server, not by the router. And after the authentication successful, the user should be allowed to access the router. So let's try. So I click the router, then I click the command prompt. Okay students, if I get, just close it, then open the command prompt. I'm sorry, already something is there, just I clear that. Okay, so when you go inside CLS, you can ignore all these commands. Okay, now students, I just close and I open the command prompt. Okay, so now I want to connect with the router. So how to connect? The command is this, telnet. Okay, so what is the IP address of the router? This 20.0.0.2. you have two IP, understand, but I want to connect with this IP, telnet 20.0.0.2. okay, telnet 20.0.0.2. so now I click enter. It is asking what is the username. Okay, so now you can ask what is this username. In the AAA server, okay, we have given the username here. Can you see? The usernames are Tom and the password is 123, or you can give any username like Cisco 123, admin 123, like whatever username you want. So now I have given Tom is the username and password is a 123. Okay, now I go here, so timeout. Again I type, this is asking the username Tom, password I type 123. now you see I am in the router. Already for router Cisco is the password, so I am in the router. Okay, I have connected to the router through the telnet from the PC, understand. So now you can see the authentication is done by the AAA server. Now I come out, again I try to log in. I give username as Jerry and password is something. Okay, login invalid because the Jerry is not available in the AAA server. Okay, there is no such user in the AAA server, so Jerry is not allowed. Jerry login is invalid, but Tom login is valid. So this is the end of the lab, students. So you just follow the steps one by one in the lab 3 and you can complete the lab successfully. Thank you very much for your participation.